Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. John Deere Classic, DraftKings picks, final bets, one and done, the weather, the complete overview of the slate, plus a to make the cut Underdog entry using code Mayo and get you an extra pick on there to double the odds on that right away. You can always hit the time codes after the live is over, and we'll get to your questions towards the end of the show. Toe tagging Tambo from shipitnation.com on the line with me. This DraftKings pricing, weirdly, Tambo, is much like last week's, where I feel like you can build any way that you want. There's no prohibitive favorite. I guess Ben Griffin is the gigantic favorite, but do you really see him that way?
I don't know. It's like we made fun of it last week and whatever. He still made, he played well. He came through. He did a little bit, but not enough for, I think, what people wanted. But this week will be the interesting case. It's 9 weeks in a row for Ben Griffin. But the pricing, like you said, sets up well. And I think it is just an interesting tidbit, Pat, that it's kind of because of the signature events and because of the setup of the PGA Tour season. But these events are getting more names in them, right? So there is I said this last week, but everybody has their guy. So it gets a little bit more spread out after you pick up on the first couple. Ben Griffin will be popular, Davis Thompson, Thor, a couple different guys that we'll talk about. But after that, it just gets kind of spread out evenly across the board beyond that.
Yeah, the first thing that popped out to me is that in the DraftKings pricing, Jason Day is the most expensive player, whereas on the odds board, he's almost double the odds of what Ben Griffin is.
Yeah. And it's not in Florida, right? So we should be good for Disney disappearances and whatnot. So yeah, maybe that's a conversation to have later. But I do think the Ben Griffin conversation is going to be the biggest one today, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, just as a spoiler alert, I'm good with not playing Ben Griffin and just playing Jason Day instead.
Yeah, it's definitely fine. And I think it's a big talking point just because the Fantasy Golf World Championship starts this week, which we can talk more about later probably. But just to note it, round one is kind of like a cash game. So Ben Griffin at 10-4 with that projection and everything that goes with it, he could be 70 to 80% owned in something like that, or 60 to 75 if you want to put a different range on it, where it is a big decision on a sort of make or break for that type of thing.
Did you see that the Rocket Classic, not the Rocket Mortgage, the Rocket Classic, had the highest ratings it's ever had last weekend?
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that? I saw why did they put the caveat that by the way, this included the 60-minute watchers, because the playoff went so long.
They probably had to throw that in to be like, oh yeah, here's why this is the case.
Yeah, I think that was the caveat, a little asterisk without an asterisk. But yeah, I don't know if you think anything differently of it, but maybe Potgieter moves the needle. That's the thing.
Okay, maybe it's Chris Kirk.
I don't think so.
And it's not Grazerman?
I don't think so either. But man, we were really close. You're sort of tipping point on the show last week of bringing us on to him, and then the way we talked through it and that coming through, I thought it was going to be him, man. He had all the opportunity in the world, but it was not. So it was Pot, not Max Grazerman.
He had 3 putts inside 12 feet to win the tournament. So
missed them all.
He missed them all, and just missed them all too, which was just devastating.
That one looked I forget which one it was exactly, but that last one where it was like, man, how did that not go in? And I think he thought the same, but it happens. That's golf. And it was pretty cool to see 20-year-old kid just get up over the hump after what we saw in Mexico and all the different stuff that we watch. I mean, just for us, especially those that stay tuned in all throughout and are just dialed into it fully. I don't know. I really like the ending of that. That was good.
It's been, I think, 3 of the past 4 years, the ending of the Detroit tournament has been awesome.
Yeah.
It's sneakily one of the best finishing tournaments that we've seen lately. We had a few blowouts the first few years, but other than that, since the Finau year, so I guess it would be 3 of the past 4, we've had playoffs. If you're going to have a birdie fest, at least make it like a close birdie fest. Then I'm intrigued. Then I'm interested.
Yeah, Bhatia wrecked it last year because it could have been even better. Bhatia missed that 4-footer at the end or whatever. But yeah, it's been good every year. I was at it live last year. This year, watching it from home was still nice. But yeah, it's a good event to throw into the mix. And everybody loves the John Deere too. Don't forget that. So this is people call it the 5th major. Forget the players. This is the one.
Well, let's take a look at the weather of what's going on. I'm using the Silvis Tower. I believe that's right. Let me go check to make sure this is the correct Silvis. Yes, I don't know how many Silvises there are, but I just wanted to make sure that we were actually just in between. It's a weird meeting point because it's the Quad Cities. I tried to map it out, like how close it is to everything. I think it's 2.5 hours from Chicago. It's pretty close to Des Moines. It's a 4-hour drive north from St. Louis. Like it's kind of really in the middle of everything.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the area beyond like where it is on a map type thing, but like for as far as the player run and how they end up at some of these different tournaments, it's just different a little bit because of like the, you got the Texas swing, the Cali swing, you're down in Florida, all these different, international events, if there is any for these majors, the Open coming up, the Scottish Open, all of that. And this just kind of gets thrown into the mix, but I think it's a good event that we know every year and watch. So we'll at least have a beat on how to handle it.
It would make more sense that if they didn't break these two up with the 3M, that they should kind of all be in a row. You can just kind of rent a car and make the loop if you wanted to, instead of playing the two, going over to Europe, then coming back to play in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's the one that throws me off a little bit. And is that new? Because I keep like even thinking about just what I mentioned earlier with the Fantasy Golf World Championship, it's been at the 3M in the past where the final ends up there. That's the same this year. Like you play this week, then round 2, if you make it, is at the Scottish, then it's at the 3M. But we've also had last year, round 3, the live final was at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, I should say, but now the Rocket Classic. So is it a schedule change to add Scottish in between these, or is that just me not remembering?
It might be you not remembering. I feel like we did have a point where the Rocket and the 3M were back to back because Finau won them in consecutive weeks before. But I think since the Scottish became an actual PGA Tour co-sanctioned event, I think 2 years ago, that now the schedule got readjusted that way. But it would make more sense to have the Midwest swing and then move on. Frankly, these 3 tournaments maybe keep the John Deere before, because it's like kind of always been before it used to be the week before the Open. You win and you get into the Open. That was the final spot.
Yeah.
But other than that, like keep the other 2 for after, maybe, because I think there's only 2 after coming out of it. It's going to be the 3M, then it's the Wyndham, then we're into the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. And it was the same last year. I was thrown off by that because I was like thinking in my head of it's all me validating it DraftKings wise, like the live final is at 3M this year, which it was a couple of years ago. But it's because they're giving 2 weeks off because the Open, obviously they're not hosting it at the Open. Although a little birdie told me that there could be a little tidbit for future that the DraftKings Fantasy Golf World Championship might be at a major next year, and it might just be a smaller group and not as much of a play. Like that would be pretty sweet if it was different setup and a smaller group and ended up being at like the US Open or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool.
I think the US Open is the only one that makes sense for a finals, because it's later enough in the year that you're not having that. I mean, you probably couldn't do it at the Masters anyway. They wouldn't have the ability to get a box somewhere for the Masters. And if you did it at the PGA Championship, there probably wouldn't be enough time to qualify. And then the lead up to those tournaments would be like the Myrtle Beach Classic and the Zurich.
Yeah. It'd be the US Open, and I think it makes a ton of sense. Right now, they're just throwing a bunch of, well, it's over now, but they just throw $3,000 queues on like random slates, like you talked about, like whatever the events are. It's like, oh, round 3, 3K queue to get in the live final. It's like, what? Like this just comes out of nowhere. They just need to shorten it down. So maybe it'll be like 100 or 150 or somewhere in the middle of that makes it. And then they play down to like 50 and then play down to 20 or something, or 15 go live. And I'm fine with that. I think it's a similar process, but it would get to a smaller crew at a crazy big event that's, a major. It'd be like an all-time thing. So I think it'd be pretty cool if they did switch it up.
How many entries do you have this year?
This year, only one. A lot of second places that I could complain about, but I'm not going to. But so just one, and I got it early, so it kind of sucked because when you get one early, you're like, oh, this is awesome. If I can get 3, that's kind of the sweet spot for how I play it. But it only takes one. I have a pretty good thought process around how you play this tournament and a lot of strategy. We've got courses over at Ship It Nation around it. I've got stuff on DFS Mastermind, but I think it's, pretty straightforward, and I don't complain about it as much as others. I kind of like that it's, everyone's like, oh, you win a tournament to get into a cash game. Then after the cash game, it's like a hybrid. Then it's a tournament. But that's the whole point. If you're going to be the champion and be the best of the best, it's all formats, best players, whoever wins, all with the same everything. Like we all play the same events, the same salaries, the same style, the same structure. It proves who the best is. And yeah, there's a lot of luck involved in golf, but I still think it's great. I love it. And I'm pretty much, getting into it every year. So I'm excited.
So the weather from the Silvis. wind finder tower. We have not much of anything. A few gusts in the afternoon on Thursday. I'm not too concerned about that. Friday, gusts again in the afternoon, but pretty consistent with the gusts all day long, and like that lower teens, mid teens, like up to 17, very, very late in the day. So I don't see like a huge advantage either way, because if you're going to play in it in Thursday afternoon, then you're not going to play in it on Friday afternoon. It seems like it's going to balance itself out. Then you have Saturday where it looks like it's going to be super windy, maybe some rain, but we can't really plan for that. But I would be kind of excited to see elements thrown into this tournament, because I feel like that never happens.
Yeah, I agree. That would make it exciting. And yeah, all we got to do, Pat, is find the guys. We got to build the best 6-6 lineup that just sneaks in on the cut and then somehow, does well and gets a weather advantage on Saturday. If only we could be that good.
It would be nice if we could be that good. Well, let's get to the bets. So here's what I got cooking. I didn't release my newsletter on Monday. I saved it for today. More of the extended write-up, not just a cheat sheet, and it'll have all the final plays in it. I ended up betting 8 guys because I didn't go. I guess 37-1 is the lowest that I have on this list. So I went back to the well with Davis Thompson, just like last week, 37-1. He's the defending champion here. And if he could just putt, then all of a sudden we'd be in business, because the ball striking continues to be superb. And this is a spot where he got it all together last year, read these greens really, really well. The last cut from my list, I know people are always intrigued by this because that player tends to do very well, is Lucas Glover, whose ball striking has been awesome and his putting has been terrible because he's Lucas Glover, but he has gained strokes on the greens here in 4 consecutive years. So it was a hard cut, but I just didn't like his odds. It was between him and Davis Thompson. I ended up going with Thompson, maybe to go back to back. I've seen Stricker and Zach Johnson go back to back here. Why not Davis Thompson? Then you got Michael Kim. My guy, Michael Kim, betting him at 50-1, Echeverria 60-1, Griot 66, and Bez Christian Bezadenhout at 70-1. I got 3 bombs: Hodges, Valimaki, and Matt McCarty 80, 80, and 90-1 this week. So just kind of a congested card. All of that, not super bomb 200-1 type player, all below 100, but nothing below 35-1 at the same time. I just didn't see that big of a distinction, much like last week, between these guys who are 50-1 and the guys that are 25-1.
Yeah, the Glover one is interesting because I know you said you left him off. He's sort of your last guy, everything. But when we get to DFS later, he's $100 less than Thor, and the whole world wants to play Thor. So, rightfully so. I get it. But just interesting. Like you said, if you can put it together, Glover's a guy that can definitely step up at a tournament like this. So, that's one. But betting's different, and the numbers all dictate it. But last guy out, you never know.
Well, it's worked. If people who have bet my last guy out, I think 3 times over the past 6 weeks that guy has won the tournament. So, I'm not putting money on him. So I'm sitting here being a big loser. Maybe you can be a big winner with all this stuff. One and done is going to be kind of the same way. I saw a question in the chat. Can you cover one and done? Well, we do cover one and done every single week. He said he has 15 guys. We have 15 guys. I'm in third. Anybody is available. And this is another one of these weeks where it's not going to be huge in terms of the prize pool. We're currently 88th. We moved up a little bit with Min Woo last week, but who would you guess is the go-to here? Is just people are going to click Ben Griffin and be on their way?
I think so. Yeah, Ben Griffin, and probably I also think maybe Denny McCarthy, just because the history and
Thor.
Yeah, Thor. But yeah, like again, it'll be those guys like Griffin and Thor based on what we've seen lately, and then McCarthy for the history stuff where people are looking at it. Obviously not playing horrible right now either, but staying in the trophy house as well. So maybe it is McCarthy week. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Where do you think we should go with this? Because obviously trying to move up, Minwoo helped a little bit. And the people that are at the front, like even this guy in third, the guy in first and second is probably going to take the chalkiest option possible. I don't think you need to get as different in a pool that's small, because frankly, there are just fewer guys that you need to fade. So you can go to like the third favorite and all of a sudden you're on top of it. I was thinking Thompson, or maybe even Lucas. Maybe this is where I use Lucas Glover.
I was just about to say that. I think that's the play. And it's not like just to do it and move on, but I honestly think that's the setup here. Something like that. He's got the history. He played well last time out. It's a spot where you can get action on him without having to commit too much. And it's versus what we talked about. I just don't see how he would fall within those upper 3 to 4 guys. So you get a guy that's good, but just outside of the most popular.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to go down the board, you can see the guys that I like, the guys that I bet, the Griots, the Nikos. You probably don't need to go down that far in this field, I would guess.
Yeah, I don't think you need it. It's just you'd be playing for an outsider, but at that point you might as well just bet them because it's not even like a massive gain in one and done based on the prize pool that we're talking about here. But those guys would have odds that are really solid. So if you're hoping to get the win, why not just get the full bet in on them?
Yeah.
Some do both. I'm just saying in general that's how I would think about that. For now, I like going like it's like stacks in baseball or quarterbacks in football, Pat, when we talk about it, where it's like, who's the spot that everyone's kind of like, good with, but they're just not fully committed to because there's 3 or 4 above that they want to go with instead. That stack, that quarterback stack, and baseball, if it's the bats, and in golf, it's kind of like who's the 5th or 6th golfer here that's clearly good, but people just aren't going to get to it because they have the other clicks in hand and they want to use them.
If you were in first and you needed to tread water with this, who would you go to?
Probably,
Griffin? Poston?
I don't know. Like the Griffin thing is such a tough one here. It's just, it's just, we've been doing it for every week. He's a different golfer right now than he ever has been. So, and it just keeps coming through. So maybe just click it and move on. I don't think it's going to kill you if you land on it either way, but I was thinking like, yeah, just using up one of those. I'm not trying to do anything crazy or sneaky. It doesn't really matter. What are you saving them for? Like if you didn't use Ben Griffin here, when are you using him? I know people could say, oh, you can use him whenever. Sure. But that's kind of the whole point. So why not just use him now?
Unless you're going to use him in the FedEx Cup playoffs, I don't see where else you would use him.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thought process on it. We talked through it there, but I think you're right. That's the key.
So I went back and looked at some of the former champions here. So Straka won, 2 years ago? Was it? Yeah, Thompson won last year. Straka won the year before that. Straka also won the Amex this year. Davis Thompson, runner-up, finish at the Amex. Is this a tournament we should be looking at? Because Poston's won here too, has a bunch of great finishes at the American Express as well.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, I didn't look too much at Comcourse stuff. I know in the past there's been, some stuff brought up around that. But who else do you have from the Amex that sort of reads out well? Or if you look it up on Fantasy National, maybe you can pull it that way. But what do you see when you pull out the stuff from the Amex?
It's not a ton. Like Justin Lauer did really well there this year. Vijegas, Grazerman was up there. Taylor Moore, Ben Griffin was inside the top 10. Smalley was second last year, the year before. He was 11th at the Amex this year. People really like Mark Hubbard this week. He was 12th at the Amex. Poston was 12th. So there's just a lot of guys that are kind of lingering around that it's not as weak of a field as this one is because you do have those big names at the top because Cantlay, Xander, Scotty usually play in that tournament, albeit very early on in the year. But I think it just makes a lot of sense to comp the two. Not that the courses are necessarily similar because there's 3 of them at the American Express, but it's just a lot of, hey, hit some fairways. Driving's not incredibly difficult. Can you get dialed in with your wedges and make a ton of putts? It's that kind of birdie fest tournament, just like the John Deere is.
Yeah, some interesting stuff. I guess like, Hubbard was pretty good there. I know he's getting talked up this week. Ben Griffin, by the way, a couple of 66s, a 68 and a 69 going back to that one. Jason Day, 64, 66, 67, finished T3. That one's interesting. And did Dunlap win the American Express the year before?
He did, but Bez was second. So Bez was the one who got the full first place prize, and Bez was second there 2 years ago. I remember betting Bez here, I think 3 years ago, whatever it might have been, that I had him with the top 5, and he ended up coming 4th, I think.
Yeah, your boy Kevin Yu was in the mix that year as well. He's here. Michael Kim was T6, and of course, Ben Griffin, T9 at that event as well. Keith Mitchell also popping up in places. JT Poston was up there that year. So, I mean, just going the last two years, there is a couple of guys. And the thing about Bez that's interesting also is that year at the Amex was second place, 28 under, Pat. And I know he withdrew, and that's like more of people's concern this week is that he had an undisclosed injury, undisclosed WD, I should say. I don't know if it was an injury, but just to note that. But a lot of people just think of him as this absolute grinder and like doesn't make birdies. 28 under at the Amex just 2 years ago. I think it's it's definitely possible. Anybody can pop up any given event. So that at that event, Scotty Scheffler was 21 under. Bez just crushed him by 28 under.
I remember vividly having money on Sam Burns that week, and Sam Burns was winning, standing on the 17th tee, and he ended up coming T6.
Yeah, he was there as well, T6. Yeah, I just saw that. So I don't know. I think that, it's something to pull from it. I don't know if it's because, the course is better to think of it from that perspective. If you actually think it lines up, I see a lot of crossover now in just some of these fields because these, like I said, the John Deere Classic was never known for like a super strong field. You might have got like Spieth there or Bryson one year or something like that, but you didn't. It's not that we have that right now, but we have enough of the sort of middling upper tier names that would be like the next tier down from the top 20 golfers type thing.
Oh, for sure. And like, so again, the courses may not be similar. I think the mindset needs to be similar. If you're deadly from 150 and in, and you make your 15-foot putts, you're going to win the John Deere Classic just like you're going to win the American Express. And there's only so many fields left now that are these weird birdie fest, wedge fest fields that have a bad strength of field. So you can kind of compare them a little bit. This is why losing the Heritage and some of these signature events now that it's not as fun because you don't get the full field with all of like this type of player playing. Because before, guys that played well at the Wyndham Championship, this Heritage, Sony, Amex, you could all kind of lump all those fields together because they weren't very strong. Can't really do that anymore.
Yeah, that's the tricky part of it. So it's I don't know if it's like a signature events thing or like the way that it sets up for the qualifying and whatnot, or both those combined. But yeah, it definitely changes it a little bit, and it's tougher on that standpoint. But I think for this event, looking at Amex is probably fine just to mix it in and use some of those names, and maybe we come up with a lineup later when we're building too, and just build around that.
Well, there is the obvious play of the week, and I didn't bet him. I don't even really know how I feel about him this week. But another guy who's been really good at Amex, coming off a really good week, and whose entire profile sets up so well for Deer Run, and it's Chris Kirk.
Jeez, this is Grazerman, shades of Grazerman from last week. So maybe this is the way we get after it here with Chris Kirk, because I don't know how you think or how, I mean, I can't really tell right now. The ownership projections are pretty spread, but what, even talking about betting one and done anything, doesn't he feel like a guy that people are like, okay, but I don't fully trust him to do that again. And then he could just come out and do that again. That's how I kind of think about it when you say it like that.
100%. Like, no one really seems to be talking up Chris Kirk at all.
Right.
He has the playoff loss last week, comes T2. He was T12 at the US Open, in case people forget that. And to look at his results from the John Deere is hilarious. He has played this tournament 7 times. He has no finish inside the top 20, but he has 5 finishes between 20th and 30th place.
Yeah. And we know we talk about this all the time, but that's always the same thing. And I know some of the history is more skewed. I mean, just 2 years ago, 21st, but these 21st and 23rds and those, as you look at any leaderboard, just going back to the Amex, you're talking 2 strokes away from it being like great history where it's like, oh, an 8th and a 9th instead of a 21st and a 23rd in some cases. So that's the type of thing you have to think about. But I really do feel like the sentiment around him is like, oh, close call for him last week, but who cares? Pot 1, that stands out to people. Nobody remembers the guy that finishes second or whatever. And he actually went out of the playoff on a shorty early. So it's like, it's really forgotten, but I just don't think people would have faith that he can do it again. And you mentioned it, there was other spots that he showed up even before that second, finishing 12th recently. So I think that's kind of the setup here, is you could go back to a guy like Kirk. Maybe he's interesting as well for one and done, just to round that conversation out.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking that maybe for one of the teams, I will end up using Chris Kirk. This is just a question before we get really into building lineups or anything. But I thought it was interesting. Jaeger and Mitchell destroyed me last week. Naturally, I should play them this week. I always feel that way. And whenever I do that, the guys continue to suck. And whenever I don't play them, they play great.
Yeah, that's the thing that, how people always think it goes against them. But most people say it and don't do it. That's actually the biggest thing I noticed. And especially talking with people and going through stuff where they're, explaining their process. A lot of people say what Seanster is saying and they talk about it, but they don't be about it. Meaning they say, oh, I know I should go back to these guys, but then they don't. And they're like, of course this guy screwed me again. Well, you said it, you knew it, and oftentimes too, Pat, you like kind of what you just talked about, last week versus this week versus other tournaments that are similar, all these factors where they showed up or have been good. It's whatever you liked about them not necessarily always, because week to week things can change. Going from this week to the Scottish Open, obviously shit's going to be quite different. But I'm saying it's usually events that are similar or field strengths that go with events or courses that are similar. And people, everything they loved about them the week before, they hate all of a sudden just 7 days later, even though it's mainly just because the result that they really don't want to play them. That's what it comes down to.
Reminder to everyone out there right now, smash a like to the episode, sub to Mayo Media Network, and use code Mayo at Underdog to get yourself a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Plus, you will get a free pick in the Pick'em game, which you can add to one of these entries. We jump over to Underdog right now and try to figure out what we want to do. I actually made an entry before we came on. Just I want to run this one by you.
Feeling it.
It's to make the cut. So I played it for $50, pays $313. Valimaki to make the cut. Hodges, Nico, Griot, and Matt McCarty all to make the cut.
Yeah, I don't hate it. One thing that stands out to me right away about it is it's totally different than, something like DraftKings, but the idea where like building a lineup, I should say, but the idea of you didn't just go all the chalk, right? Like you didn't just run it as like 5 of the most obvious guys to make the cut because you've been there and you've seen it. And typically it doesn't always work in your favor. You have some outliers in there that make sense, that are still really good golfers that can do great things here, but all you need them to do is make the cut. So I really like the overall build perspective where you chose a couple maybe popular guys, but then more middling guys that are definitely good enough to crush here and do just fine.
Yeah, and this will pay, 6.26 to 1. And I think I like these ones better than the single round props.
Well, I like it because that's kind of what I was like, same thing I was just talking about, where it's the setup of when you do this and you're betting it that way, it's like it's totally different. You just need it to come through. And people say the opposite. Oh, you don't need to worry about ownership in betting. You don't, or anything to do with that. I'm just saying it's usually when something's too good to be, seems too good to be true, it is. So if you just go and pick, not to mention, if you just pick 5 super favorites to make it, Pat, what the odds are going to be as well. They're not going to be 6 point something to 1. They're going to be like 3 or 3.5 or 4 or something like that because the odds are just going to be crushed down. Let's
see if we can pile up something here. We can do a round 1 as well. We mentioned Chris Kirk. We can go lower 67.5 strokes, par 71 at the John Deere. That you get a bonus for that. JT Poston 1.07. You get a bonus for that if he goes lower. Then if he goes 4 under or better, can we find anyone else, I suppose, to throw in here? Who's someone you don't like this week?
Just scrolling through the names and trying to think.
Kevin Kisner? You think he can go Kevin Kisner higher?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, love that.
Asking Kevin Kisner to be 2 under, or I actually have no idea how Kevin Kisner's been doing, but he hasn't been playing a lot of golf. This I know.
He's been giving thumbs ups. He's doing really well. Miscut, and miscut. And here last year, miscut.
Is he actually firing? But it's not so much the miscut. It's
no, I know.
He was 68-71 last week, so that wasn't terrible. So he's still scoring. The one out he has that I do worry about, I suppose, is he can putt. And if you can putt here, you can make some birdies.
Yeah, it's a prime example of what I just said too. Like, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is. Like Kisner can definitely shoot a 69 here or better, like a 68, 69, and boom, you're because of what you're putting on the card, it crushes it. He doesn't need to make the cut. He just has to beat 69.5.
Is Thirsty Lawrence like a thing now?
I tried last week, man. I was telling you, all your boys were up there last week, actually, for the most part. Kevin,
what really cooked me was texting you after round 1 being like, I am the dominator of this tournament.
Yeah, I didn't get any texts from you after that one.
No.
What happened?
Well, Wyndham Clark, I think, made a 9 on a par 5 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's the way she goes. I was liking some stuff at that point as well, and it also didn't end my way. So it happens. And then, like Jordan in the chat says, going back to our previous conversation of, sticking with your guys. Unfortunately, I bet Cam Young 4 tournaments in a row.
Did Cam Young make the cut last week?
I don't think so. Did he?
I don't remember. We'll play this one too. So we'll play $50 into 400, 8.17.
Yeah, he made it and finished T46. That's what it was.
It seems like you are using a VPN proxy. I'm not using a VPN proxy, though. That's the thing. I don't even have that on this computer. Well, this will be the play. Kisner higher than 69.5 strokes. Poston lower 67.5, and Chris Kirk lower 67.5. That is the official underdog play of this show. Come on, one more time. Confirm. No. This is gonna be great when we try to enter the lineups a little bit later on. I have to reset my computer mid-show and not go live anymore. But we will be building lineups and more and taking your questions right after this. Now, during their 4th of July sale at omahastakes.com, you can get 50% off site-wide, plus my listeners get an extra $45 off with promo code Mayo at checkout. You get yourself ready for grilling season, and I already did. got my package. So I went onto the site. I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to get. So there is a package that's only a limited time only, and I took the upgrade because I'm already saving the $45. You think they would just send it to me, but I'm using the $45 with code Mayo, so I saved myself an extra $5 on this one. But you get 4 5-ounce bacon wrap filet mignons. You get some jumbo franks, some caramel apple tartlets for dessert, plus some Omaha Steak seasoning, and then the triple trim filet mignons. You get one of those, and 4 boneless pork chops. It's perfect for people who are coming over. Listen, there's weirdos out there who don't love steak. It's really strange to me. They want chicken, they want hot dogs, they want sausages, they want pork, whatever it might be. I know it sounds crazy, but I found these people in my life. So this package is what I had to go with because these people are the ones who are coming over for my kickoff to grilling season. And everything is going to be here in time from omahasteaks.com. That's why you got to use code Mayo. Get fired up for 4th of July with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their 4th of July sale and earn an extra $45 off. Use promo code MAYO at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $45 off with promo code MAYO at checkout. See site for details. I got my way around it, Tambo. I went on my phone during the ad break and then dumped the link into the chat to the Underdog play we just made.
That's so funny because I you know what I was going to say? That's so funny because I knew what you were stressing wasn't that you were just getting hit with that on your computer right now. It was like you want to make sure you get that ticket in and not have to think about it later or get to it when you're doing the newsletter. So you're like, how do I just get this in right now? When you were doing the one more time thing, I knew that's what it was. So I'm glad you got it in, Pat.
So we're in. We're in on that front. That's good news. We can start building some DraftKings lineups. I do want to let everyone know CoolBet is the official sportsbook sponsor of the Pat Mayo Experience. You can use it in Canada outside of Ontario. Tambo, we're running a poker qualifier, the Pat Mayo Open Poker Qualifier, next Tuesday evening on CoolBet. You can hit the description and get the sign-up code and everything like that. You go into the poker app and just search Pat Mayo and like the PME Open. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I believe it's 20 euro to play, which I think is like $30 Canadian, 25 American. And the grand prize, the top 2 in my qualifier go to the final qualifier, and whoever wins that qualifier, Tambo, gets a trip to Tallinn, Estonia. I believe it's a 550 euro entry to the main tournament that's going on, over 250,000 euros. So if anyone likes poker in there, I'm terrible, and I have a bounty on my head for this tournament. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like playing a game here and there. It's definitely worth it. It's just, sometimes it's time consuming. You got to be ready for it. And this is obviously something you can get prepped for and then get involved. And if you make it, then obviously it's going to be a lot of money on the line. So it's worth it at that point to really get ready for it. But yeah, I like that.
I don't know if because they're going to add people to the tournament over. I kind of want to win because I want to go to Estonia. I think that would be fun.
I want the content from Estonia. Do you think you get Cuss to go with you?
No. Absolutely not.
That would make it even better. But if you can't get him, I guess I'll still take your content. I'd want to see that.
Yeah, Pat Mayo mid-August Estonia content.
Yeah, you're already thinking about it. Perfect.
Yeah, I'll try to. I have to figure out the time zones first. I bet you it's like 12 hours or something like that. Maybe it's not as bad. It's like bordering on Russia, just south of Finland. But it would just be a cool part of the world to go to.
Yeah, definitely like I don't know if it's bucket list. It wouldn't be for most, but be able to do it would just be something cool that's different and see a different part of the world that others would probably never and most likely never have an opportunity either.
Oh, for sure. So let's jump into these DK lineups as we go through it. Where do you think we want to build like the chalkiest lineup possible? What do you think that looks like?
Ben Griffin for sure.
Ben Griffin, okay.
And then Thor, yeah.
So what I'm seeing on my end from the most owned, that once we start digging, it's a lot of the guys I actually bet on this week in the $7,000 range. So you have like Mark Hubbard, I think is going to be pretty popular. I would guess that Griot is going to be super popular. Maybe even Kevin Roy again or Lee Hodges again.
Probably like Lee Hodges, Griot, and do you have Smalley or Potgieter? Probably Smalley. People don't go back to the winner the next week.
They want to go back to Smalley, who just stole all my money last week.
And do you think they do? Yeah, he finished pretty well. I think you got it right there. It's something like this, and I think Griot could actually be Putnam as well, but it's definitely this. This projects super well.
So it's these four, and who are the last two then?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were typing them in as we go. Yeah, Ben, it was Griffin Thor, and then you said Hubbard. You were right on that one for sure. And so I thought you had him in there, and you'd see it rounded out. But it's Hodges, and then it lands you on Putnam. And if you want Griot to be, it's a Smalley to round it out. I apologize. I was saying if you want Griot to be Putnam, that could also be it. From a projection standpoint, the Putnam one comes in higher than the Griot one.
This Putnam thing is really strange. It's all putting.
Yeah, show up with a good putter here. Ask your boy Michael Kim how that goes.
Michael Kim was just untouchable the year he
that
won.
week was insane, man. After everything, it just goes absolutely off. That was crazy. But yeah, I think Putnam people are going to be looking at him. Like, just even last week he dropped a 62 on the card, or it was at the Canadian Open, I think, right? The 62 he had.
Yeah, so, he's been top 10 each of the past two starts, and maybe you just roll with it while he's in the zone. But he has gained at least, let's see here, 9, at least 10 strokes between chipping and putting in each of the past two tournaments. Like, that is not something that happens.
Yeah, that if it doesn't happen, I mean, that's going to hurt you. But it's also, that's the other thing. I don't think it's not that hard. Like, the thing about Putnam, what I think is could be a spot where he makes the cut and then does nothing, right? It's because the weekend gets him, or the putter doesn't work as well, or whatever it might be at that point. But he can make, and that's the whole thing. It's like what people always say. This is a showdown thing because we're talking DraftKings now, but it applies to main slate as well. But just to note it, where people always say, oh, so-and-so gained 4 strokes putting in round 2. You could never play them in round 3. There's no way that happens again. You're probably right. It doesn't happen again. But what if he gains 1.5 or 2 tomorrow? That's still phenomenal, and it's not 4. And so that's how I could see somebody like Putnam coming through, make the cut, but then not be required for over the weekend. So, cash games, things like that. I think that's why he lands on this chalky lineup. But for tournaments, you probably want somebody around him or somebody different that gives you the upside elsewhere.
I would agree with you to a point where, like, I agree with you on that concept that if you have, if someone gains 4 strokes putting in one round, like, oh, you can't play them because they're going to lose 4 in the next one. No, that's not necessarily it's just unlikely that they would gain 4 again. If they gain 2, then whatever. If they're a good putter, then that makes a ton of sense. But gaining like 7 strokes a week on the greens over and over is just not something that we've ever seen. So eventually that craps out. And if he's not doing that, he's just not any good.
I just don't think that that's something that people will factor in. No one's like, again, people are playing him. He's going to be popular this week. They're not saying, wow, I just noticed that Putnam gained all these strokes on the green. Let's move him out of my lineup. They're saying he's 7,900. He's below the average price on DraftKings. I need a made cut, and then I'll see what happens from there. Let me run him in. And if he does happen to find that putter or keep that putter going for just one more week at a putting course, then that could come out even better for you. But I don't think people are going to move off him. So just from the standpoint of what we were talking about in the chalky lineup, that projects really well, that lineup that we just pulled. And there's
so I guess that's the lineup: Griffin, Thorbjornsen, Hodges, Griot, Hubbard, and Smalley, or whoever I guess Putnam would be. And then you leave
Putnam instead of Griot. If you leave Smalley, I think people are leaving Smalley over Griot, and then you're
okay. That's interesting.
That's what projects as a pretty popular lineup this week.
So I'll enter that. Let's see. Did it work? It's pinpointing my location. Man. It worked.
Location services today.
There we go. Making it easier on myself. Now I can actually enter these as we go along. Because that would be devastating if I was building these lineups with you and couldn't enter them.
Yes.
Then I have to go back and watch the show. And who wants to do that? Smash the like while you're here, by the way. And enter that poker tournament. Next Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern. We want to get as many people in it as possible. Even if you could help us out on the Discord, Tambo. Just tell maybe some Canadian. Listen, you used to live out west. I'm sure you got out west people who love playing poker. Let them know.
For sure.
So here's an easy change to this lineup. Let's take out Putnam and let's take out Smalley. I think that works for Nico and Bez. Immediately. Yeah. There. I instantly like this lineup better.
Yeah. So That's exactly like, the setup where, you play your guys, like, for sure. You didn't like Putnam, so get him out of there. And that's for sure. But like the thing is, I don't really love that lineup or even the style of it at all. And that's where I think people get sort of, if I just make a few pivots, for sure, but you're still backed into the same. I mean, if you're thinking about it as the first lineup we built, there's 100 people in front of you and you're trying to get to the front of them. And really it's more, but let's just use 100 for easy math. When you make those changes like that, you stepped up, like you got past like 10 people. There's 90 people still in front of you, or maybe you got past 20 and there's 80 still in front of you. You didn't really do anything outside of the box beyond get rid of the guys you don't like, play the guys you do like. How you have a chance to really jump the crowd is to do something like put in Jason Day with Ben Griffin, and you play Ben Griffin as your second guy in, and then you find somebody down low that sort of compares to it and move off of it. Like this is still even better as is, because you're going Day. Yeah, like you get what I'm saying. That's the first lineup. Play your guys, sure, but I'm kind of looking for different constructions here. So what do you got?
So I just amended that lineup a bit, just switched out some guys for guys that I like a little bit more, and then made it a bit more unique. Can you see yourself going into the sixes this week? There was no one in the sixes who really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I'm always fine with it because you'll find some gems down there as long as you just pick your spots. I don't want to play like 10 different guys or 15 different guys down there or something, but that is interesting outside of your question there, because it's pretty straightforward. I agree with you, and it's if you land there, we'll see if we find anybody later, but you really don't need to. But an exact 2v2 this week, the old 2v2 swapperoo, is Ben Griffin, Thor, Super Chalk, is Jason Day, Lucas Glover.
And that's what I've done here. I've gone Day, Glover at the top. I put in Michael Kim at 82, and then just hit on the best of hits from the 7,000 range: McCarty, Bez, and Hodges.
Bez, McCarty. How much is McCarty this week?
McCarty's only 72.
That seems light, yeah. And then
it'll be very fun when he ends up winning and all these people have Denny McCarthy tickets and they think that they'll tune in to be like, oh shit, Denny's in first place. Like, oh no, wrong guy.
Yeah, McCarty. Oh man. Yeah, everyone's talking about McCarthy this week, but I don't know if they're even actually clicking him as much as they say, because right now, I guess they are, but it just still feels like with Post in there and with Davis Thompson below and other guys, I don't know exactly where people are going, but that area does seem to be pretty spread out this week because you've got Griffin clearly owned up top. And I think Thor and Tom, I don't know, maybe Denny does get the ownership that it says, but I think there's also a possibility that people end up on Davis Thompson more than McCarthy.
I was surprised to see the projected ownership on Thompson lower. I figured that Thompson would be the second most owned guy, but I guess that Thor is taking away from that. But I mean, I like
Thompson pulls from one of them, whether it's Thor, McCarthy, if not both, I should say. But I definitely think Thompson pulls some ownership there. It makes sense. It's an easy click. It goes well with Ben Griffin lineup still. If you fix up those ones that we looked at earlier, it doesn't force the sixes or anything. I think it's fine.
Do you worry? Ryan Gerard rates out really well, but like that guy can't putt at all. Like it's now becoming a problem.
Yeah, I don't really worry about that too much on a week-to-week thing, but because you do need it, I get it. But I'm saying like he can't putt until he does. But the difference with him too is he's kind of showed up everywhere, Pat. Like he showed up at the Heritage, he showed up at Memorial, he showed up at the PGA Championship. These are much stronger fields, harder courses. I don't know if that's going to translate, but it hasn't lately. But I'm just saying if it does. It wouldn't surprise me. Then you go back to something like the Texas Open or the Houston Open, 2nd and 9th. Is another thing too.
What's weird is he putted well through Texas, and now he's losing. What is it on average over his past 5 tournaments? He's losing 5 strokes putting per tournament on average.
Yeah,
like it's like his alignments. Like you don't go from being like an okay putter to now you're in a stretch where you literally can't hit the hole. Like we've seen guys go through this, and you're right, they do snap out of it eventually. But it's not usually like, hey, you lost 2, you lost 8, you lost 4, you lost 7. Now you're gaining 7. It doesn't usually work that much. You usually get like periodically better, stabilize yourself, and then you spike. It usually doesn't go from being the absolute worst guy out there to the best guy out there.
Yeah, and it's relative too, though, because he's basically average price. So when we're talking draft, I mean, to bet him outright, I think that's the conversation we always have at the top of the show, which we did. that's where I understand that. For DraftKings, I think it's totally different because he's $8,500 and he can come through for you just as easily or more than some of the other guys there. You're talking about Bud Cauley, your boy Pearson. We'll get the impression here shortly. Stevens, your other boy Michael Kim, Olesen, Fowler, Smalley, etc. Like, it's just, you could definitely see Ryan Gerard come through here and do enough for what you need.
Well, this ends up becoming somewhat of a dead zone, I think, this week from 85 to 8,000, because it seems like people are playing Bud Cauley. I've seen people bet Bud Cauley, and he's right around that average price that you mentioned at 8,600, that people are going to go to him. Other than that, you have Gerard, Pearson Cootie, who was like outrageous, although his Corn Ferry numbers have been really good over the past month. So maybe I'll go to Pearson Cootie. Who knows? Sam Stevens, Michael Kim, Olesen, Ricky, and Smalley. Like, I don't have Smalley as high as you seem to have him. I think all those guys are single-digit players.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of what I said earlier. Like, when you get fields like this, I talk about lazy weeks, and last week I just made the joke over at Ship It Nation. I said it's more of like a law week. We'll leave the Z and Y out of it, or Z for our American viewers, but we'll leave it out because it's not really fully lazy. It's just we clearly know a couple spots up top. Like, we know Ben Griffin, we know Thor, we can guess on McCarthy and Thompson, but when you get to Chris Kirk and down, outside of maybe Hubbard, maybe Griot, maybe a couple of those spots, Hodges that we looked at, everyone's going to be, if they're not single digits, Pat, they're like 11 or 11.2 or 11.5. Like, there's a ton of 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s. This is what people focus on. And I think last week was a good example too. I had this on a lineup review show I did over at Mastermind. Last week, Akshay was in the similar zone to Davis Thompson, okay? And everybody bitched about Davis Thompson's ownership, donkey chalk, you can't play this guy, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to move to Bhatia instead, and I'll play him. And what happened? Bhatia ended up coming in like very similar ownership. But they only did it for the ownership break. But they knew Davis Thompson was a good play, and they liked him. They just didn't want to play him because of the ownership, and they moved to somebody else who ended up getting very similar ownership. So it's like you got to just, in spots like this, ignore that more and pick your guys. You just don't want to fill your lineup up like we started this segment of the show with all of those guys and within the exact same roster construction pattern that everybody else is using.
So can we hit this mid 8s then, or the lower 8s? Let's say Pearson Cootie, whose betting odds are like, it was the first thing that Jeff and I noticed when we opened up the odds board on Monday, that he was the same price to win the tournament as Davis Thompson was. It was like, what is going on here? And then I looked into his Corn Ferry numbers. It made a bit of sense, but he's actually kind of good for this tournament versus like a Ryan Gerard, that Gerard probably finishes better than him most of the time because of the ball striking. But Cootie's biggest trait is his putting. It's his wedge play. It's his putting, which is kind of perfect for this tournament.
Yeah, I think, I was listening to you and also reading, because we're talking about Cootie, about Jordan's things. This is about as expensive as Thompson, Knapp, Potts. Feels like a trap. I mean, it feels the opposite of a trap. It feels like everybody thinks it's a trap, so they won't go in there.
Yeah.
And it could actually be what you want to go to. I mean, these are the spots I love when it's like, oh, he's just way too expensive, or he sucks, or he's like, who would ever play him at that price? So it's called paying up for probability. And because he's priced up, you're typically getting a good setup where people aren't on him. And a great example last week, Pat, would be Grazerman. We sort of pegged that. He did get steamed up a little bit as the week went on, but I'm just saying in the beginning when we were looking at it, everybody was on the guys above Grazerman. There's no way he should be 9,100 and Clanton 9,000 and so on and so forth. And they end up being like a guy like Grazerman ends up being right there in the mix into the very end of the playoffs. So it's not saying that'll happen with Cootie this week, but just saying when you think somebody's priced up too much and they're in a dead zone and it's kind of just feels wrong, that could be a great time to move to him. Who's
your favorite guy from 72 and below? I've been seeing signs with Eckroat. He's not putting it all together. He's never played in the John Deere either, but he's making cuts again. Although, yeah, he came like last of all the guys who made the cut at Memorial. But I don't know. I think he was first round leader at the Travelers, unless Scotty ended up getting to him. He shot a 62 to open there. He seems like the right kind of guy for this tournament, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I think he's fine. Some of the guys that, like you mentioned, Eckroat, Chan Kim, Fishburne, Suber. There's a few guys there that I would take shots on. And then in the upper sixes, I think I'll take a shot on Adam Hadwin as well.
Hadwin would make, and he would fit that Amex crossover really well too. This always felt like a great tournament for Hadwin. He's just been shit. Like for a year, he's been bad.
Yeah. I don't know. Like he's definitely he's missing something, but again, we're pricing that in at 6,800. So
yeah, I'm just trying because the lineup that I have on screen right now is Poston, Kirk, McCarty, Cootie, and Michael Kim. So that gives me a 10, no nines, 3 8s, and a low 7s. And I just think that McCarty might end up being super chalk because I think he's the most mispriced player in the field this week.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I thought when we looked at it there earlier, where's he at now? Maybe he's 75 though.
Who?
What's Hodges priced at?
Hodges is 73.
73. That's what it says. I definitely feel like McCarty will get some love and some steam at the end here as well. But I think that Hodges would get a little bit more, but you can play both, obviously. And that's kind of the setup there, but not in this lineup. So
well, you could take Poston down to Denny if you wanted to, or you could take Cootie down to, I don't really like Sam Stevens at this course. You could take Michael Kim down to Olesen, something like that to make that work. But if we're just looking for a $7,200 player, because Valimaki is at 7,300, there's actually just a lot of guys at $7,300 who make a ton of sense this week.
Yeah, the one you said, like if you go down to McCarthy, is a 9 888 2 7s, and it kind of skips the 7s outside of the Hodges play. I mean, it sort of goes and glazes over the the Smalley, Mitchell, Hubbards, Kitayamas, Putnams, Griots. Like it doesn't go to that range. So while still using 7s and 8s, and it's also who you're writing off. Ben Griffin, which you're already doing because he's not in this lineup. So you're already saying, okay, I'm out on him. It's a fade Griffin lineup. You're writing off JT Poston and Jason Day. So to go to Denny McCarthy, it's not like you're doing anything that crazy. What about who I was going to ask you about? What happened last week with Si Woo? Remember we talked about him last week? He looked good until he didn't, though. I think what did he go? 4 under, and then horrible over the weekend?
Yeah, I won those. I rarely play head-to-heads and give those out in the newsletter as a part of the cheat sheet, but I had Harry Hall over Si Woo. But yeah, he didn't end up, what did he end up doing? He ended up coming 84th.
He didn't end up WDing, and he looked so promising to start, but he was horrible over the weekend. I know that much. So he was useless in DraftKings.
Well, it was one of those things where it came out that, yeah, maybe, I guess the injury did not bother him. In all honesty, like this should be a great Si Woo course. But
yeah, that's why I was asking about him. He's right there too. And, interestingly enough, he shows as him and my boy Sungjae show as the potential for single digits from 9K and above. And yes, it'll be a very high single digits, if at all. I'm just saying that that's the guys that would show that type of potential early on.
Si Woo might be 3% owned. No one is using Si Woo.
Right. So it's a way you can do different things. Like you can obviously cut into him with a guy with Ben Griffin, because most with Ben Griffin would either jump down altogether or have Thompson or Thor. You end up with Si Woo in there, or you could use Si Woo to stack up sort of a 9K range build. Like what if you went Si Woo, Thompson, Thor, and you'd end up in the lower 7s and not in the upper where we know everybody's popular. You had some guys down in the lower 7s that you mentioned that you already liked that we could get to. And that's another way you could even use McCarty. Yeah, like you could go McCarty, Eckroat, who you mentioned, and you'd have enough money left for your boy Valimaki or Hodges or whoever you wanted, and it's not horrible.
Yeah, I'll throw Valimaki into this one. Although I want to start with, what if you just started with, because Sungjae I'm seeing even lower than Si Woo. So I don't like this. Sungjae has been really bad, man. Like really bad.
Everyone says that.
Because they look at his fucking results. What are you not looking at? What has he done well?
I don't know. I just think people just shit on him for no reason. Like he's, even like, what was it? The one I just had up here the last time of the Travelers. It's just a bad result, but it was like he still had, what was the setup I was looking at? It was like from the Masters on. He was 5th, 11th, 23rd, 16th.
He had the 2 good weeks. He was 5th at the Masters. He was 11th at the Heritage. 2 weeks where he gained over 5 strokes around the green because he chipped in, I believe.
16th at the Memorial's not bad. 23rd at the Truist when it's one bad round. He shot a 66, 67, a 69, and then a 72 to hurt him. Those aren't horrible. It's the last 3 weeks, not great. Mind you, there is some 67s and 68s mixed in there. I mean, you'll want lower than that here, but yeah, I'm fine. I'm always going to play Sungjae. So, I just think it's a way to get different. And 12th here last year, maybe he shows up.
Maybe it's just his approach play is like the worst in the field.
Yeah, it's not healthy for that price. That's for sure.
No, like I'm looking at the model rank right now that I have built out. He is 154th of 156th.
That's a broken model right there.
It's really, I mean, it's the short-term model. When you're losing 6 strokes per event with your approach play, where are you going to rank?
That's why the short-term model, Pat. It's a short-term thinking. We're thinking long-term here.
So how long-term do we want to go? How many rounds would be sufficient for you for long-term?
Let's go 50 rounds.
50 rounds. We'll see how Sung Jae rates out there. And I assume it's also terrible, but let's see. Yeah, 151st.
Let's go 100 rounds.
Past 100 rounds. Maybe he'll get better this way. Past 100 rounds with Sung Jae. Sung Jae is now 110th. Big move up for him.
Let's go last 2 years.
So all rounds past 2 years. 2025, 2024. And we'll go to all rounds, see how we do. He does play a lot, so we have to go to all rounds for this one. He's 142nd. That actually makes him worse.
Oh, gosh. Hurt my feelings over here. All right. Might have to go to 150, Ross says. We went quite a ways there. So, yeah, it's probably warranted then at that point. I thought we'd check into it and get a better result there, Pat. But I don't know. I really struggle with it always. I know I'm a Sung Jae truther, but like the 5th at the Masters, the 11th, the stuff like those are big boy events.
Those are big boy events, but you can see the blueprint of how he did it. Even the 16th at Memorial, 8 strokes gained around the greens. Like if this is just a drive, chip, and putt competition, I mean the putting part wouldn't be very well. He'd be great. But he actually has to hit approach shots, which he has now lost in 13 consecutive events.
I like Ross in the chat. Maybe just exclude everything from the last 2 years, and then let's get his ranking. And
listen, then you'd be looking good. Like I'm looking at his past 5, 10, 20 tournaments, and then all of his tournaments lifetime. He is still a positive lifetime on approach, marginally, in his 192 tournaments. Over the past 5, he's losing 4.3 strokes per start on approach, 3.1 over his last 10, over his past 20, minus 2.8. He's getting worse somehow.
Oh, I know how. It's talk about losing. It's losing those pounds. Sung Jae slim ever since he lost the weight, man. It's been the problem. So hopefully we can get him back on what he used to call his favorite American foods, and he'd be able just to pile in the calories, pile in the fats, get everything rolling, and then get back out there and get that approach game back. But it has been bad. You're right. So probably not worth talking about more than the fact that I'm always going to play him. But I like the Glover Kirk thoughts that you had earlier, and there are guys that are just below him. So I think you could definitely go to guys like that and get different also.
Could you just start this way?
Like, again, this is a week where it is interesting of the ultra balanced build, only because it's not always that it'll fully come through. You see it again last week with, again, another 45 or 44K optimal or something. But we're not looking for, I mean, you'd love to have the optimal in golf, but it's not what you're going to get to. It's just not going to happen. But in a week like this, if you think some of those other guys above could fail, and they definitely can, then you could go to a more balanced build here, because what if you do need, who are the other guys you like there? But if you do need the Cootie and Michael Kim with Kirk, with Glover, that leaves you with 7750, which is kind of in that same range we already talked about. That would get you Bez and, I don't know, Smalley, for example. Could that happen? Yes. And as long as you have the winner from there and the other guys do well, you could be in lineups with Ben Griffin where he gets you a T13. It's not good enough, and the guys around him fail, because it's not really a lot of lineups that are set up like that to land on the same combination. So I definitely think that's another interesting thing to look at. Maybe it's Hubbard and Keith Mitchell that you need. That actually projects well. And it's got a 9, 3 8s, and 2 7s, but your Glover is your starting point.
Yeah, Glover, Kirk, Bez, Nico, Michael Kim, Pierce, and Cootie. Look at these Cootie results. Sung Jae could learn a thing or two from this guy. 7th, 3rd, 2nd, 12th, 16th, 25th, 25th. It's a good run for him.
It's a great run. That's what I was talking about earlier, where, like, again, will people actually end up there? I don't know. And look at the birdies that he makes. Go back to it again.
Yeah, and this is always something that you can point out when it gets to this part of the season. Do you mind that these guys are like, this is between the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour. Like, his past 4 starts have been on Korn Ferry, and he's just piling in birdies. Does that gear you up more for a tournament like this, just because some guys had to play in the US Open, where that's not what you do in those tournaments. In this tournament, just fired some pins.
He's just firing away, man. And this is the best part, actually, is what, people say, like, oh, but, normally what they would say, Pat, this is what the polarization, a little bit of it is, but I like it, is normally people would say, well, this field's not that much different than a Corn Ferry Tour field. Mind you, now it is. We've already harped on that throughout the show. There is a lot of really good players here, but you really have to think about the broad structure of it. $8,400. Well, he may feel priced up. That's a guy that can make 25 birdies, an eagle, whatever it might be. And maybe that's only good enough for a T25 here, but that's great. At $8,400 with all that scoring and that could be more than enough to get the job done. So it's just a little thing like that I always think of when I'm looking at it. You got to bring in all the factors. That's something I would think of there. What do you got now?
So I took Cootie out just to see if we can get up a little bit. That if you wanted to play Thor, Glover, Kirk as a start.
So we got Thor, Glover, Kirk, and it lands you on McCarty, Kim, and Bez.
Yeah.
Let me see how that one rates out. McCarty.
I would guess McCarty should rate out great. He should be one of the higher projected people. Like I said, I think that he is probably the most underpriced or incorrectly priced player from down there because his win equity is shockingly high versus this field. Like, this is the type of field where he wins. Like, he won the Shriners earlier. He won 3 times on Corn Ferry last year. Like, this is the type of venue where you want to see him.
Yeah. That's a really good way to get different with Thor too, because that's the other thing. Thor is 9,100. That's why people are so enamored with him. They're like, after last week, what they saw, we know what his capability is. Like, it's the thought process around what he's done even here at this course. Like, they're going to be fine with him. But the main thing is with him is if you build it like that, Pat, you don't actually need him to come. What if Glover wins and Thor just puts up a T7 or something? Like, that's how you counterbalance this. You're putting good guys in behind him that can score and show up. So I think that's another good way to set it up. What about your boy 4chan?
I've been off Kim for a while. I don't even know what he's been up to.
I think he's a bad run right now, but
yeah, he was T19 last week, so good for him, but he had missed 4. So he had a T7 in Punta Cana, then he missed 4 straight cuts and got a T19. Just he's not flashing that same consistency that he used to. Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too, is I'll take some at a tournament like this, where it's again like who gets hot with the putter, this, that, and the other. I'm more than likely to take some risks on some of those big upside guys. Like, I feel like if he does come through, he could come through. Like, it could be a solid outing for 7K, like where you get a top 10 or something like that. Like, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm hoping for that version of him, at least if that's what we're, if we're playing him. So at least he has that in the bag. It's kind of my thoughts.
Are you seeing anyone projected over 5% from the 6K range?
Do you think it's going to be real on Jackson Koiven, the amateur? He's the guy that people are talking about a little bit at 6,800.
Yeah, his name is Saku Koivu until he actually does something.
Yeah, I was just trying to look up because you have the other stuff there. I wanted to see.
I don't know what he's been doing on the amateur circuit, but the results really haven't been all that great. I mean, he's supposed to be awesome, so maybe you just roll with him. But if he's the guy, put it this way, if you were going to roll with amateurs, that instead of Koiven, I would play Benjamin James for cheaper.
Yeah. And so, again, back to the question, I don't know if there's going to be anybody over 5%, but it feels like it would have to be steam on somebody like him. The Zach Johnson Open, I don't think so. But, I just don't see it. And I don't think, it's one of those weeks where pick your few guys down there, sure, but I don't know if you'll necessarily get on the right combination, even if you do land on the right guy.
So the difference, I mean, with Koiven, he's been up and down. Benjamin James cannot putt for the life of him, but I think he's like 20 years old. But the ball striking, like, he was one of the better ball strikers despite missing the cut at the US Open. He was 33rd at Valero and lost 7 strokes putting, still came in 33rd because he gained 8 strokes between driving and approach. This isn't as big of a driver heavy course, but this approach play has been awesome. Like, basically, when you take a look at his profile, it's Ryan Gerard, but he's $6,600.
Yeah, I was trying to see what that does for us, though. Like, if you go there and
nothing really. Like, if you take, let's say you take Bez down to James, and then you can take McCarty up to the Michael Kim territory if you wanted to, or that you could turn Thorbjornsen into Thompson, And then you could turn Kirk into like Knapp if you wanted to, but I don't really want to.
What do you have here? Thompson, Michael Kim, Benjamin James is just 6,600. And then you've got McCarty.
This feels like the wrong type of lineup to do this in. Like this is the type of lineup where you go Day, Griffin, James, and then work it out.
Which we should go to in a second, but I will note, like, that's, you could get Poston over Davis Thompson here and go with like Poston, Glover, Kirk, Michael Kim,
Yeah,
McCarty, Benjamin James. Like, that's how you'd get there, something like that.
I just don't know if you need to take on that much risk in this tournament.
I think this is the best tournament, like style of tournament, to take on risk. But
no, I mean with a random 6K guy, because it's not like, oh, if I just there's 100 of them in this tournament. Like, who knows?
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I agree on that. Like, filling up your portfolio with 6K guys just to hope you land on it. You could get you could pick 5 guys down there and have them in 5 lineups each, for example. And you probably buried 25 lineups right out of the gate. But even if you get the one guy right, and all you'll get to say probably is, I nailed Benjamin James. I went with him. I put him on 5 of my lineups. Okay, how'd they do? Oh, well, they were all 4 or 6s. Well, then who gives a shit? Like, they're useless, because you can't just do that. You still need all the other stuff to go right. So you're not really committing when you're spreading it out like that. If you're going to do it, you may as well just put all those lineups to Benjamin James and be able to say, okay, if I get him right, I've got 20 combos, or in this case, 25 in my math, to say I've got this covered. That's how I would think of it. But I do think somewhat interesting is the Jason Day, Ben Griffin combo. Many reasons, Pat. One, most people are starting with Ben Griffin. We know this. Having him as your second guy in, there's only one way to have him as your second guy in this week. It's to use him with Jason Day. There's so many ways to get different with him otherwise. But if you do the Jason Day, Ben Griffin, do you have to skip the 9s? No, but you pretty much should, because of everything we talked about. And then also you end up with an average of around 7,200. So not only is it the 9K and the upper 8s typically that you're kind of leaving out, or maybe you get one 8K guy in there, but you're really leaving out a lot of the chalk zone of whatever you decide it is. Michael Kim down to Hodges, or whatever you want to use as your range. You land in a range that's not there, while still not needing to go in the 6s if you don't want to.
This works out to be, I think this is the chalkiest version that I could build of this lineup. Let's see. Where's the other guy? There's one more down here. I guess it would probably be Thirsty Lawrence. Tom Kim is playing in this tournament. Good for him.
Yeah. You think it's a spot?
No. Do you?
Never know, man.
Sure. You can say that about every single player in the field.
This could be the Tom Kim spot, though.
I would go to him over Patrick Rogers.
There was something about Tom Kim. What was it that I saw this week?
Is it that he's not good anymore?
Isn't there? That's definitely something you could find if you went and looked it up. What was the other thing? It was like, shoot, there was something. Was there a Shriners comparison in the past?
Maybe.
Like I think. I think Poston did well at Shriners, and
Poston won Shriners this year. Let's see, Tom Kim, Adam Hadwin, JT Poston. Poston plays this circuit of courses really well. The short courses that rely on wedges and putting. He's good at all of them.
Yeah. Tom Kim is 7,300. So do what you want with it. I think that's kind of my thoughts. But yeah, if you put Thirsty in there, who else did you have? Valimaki?
I didn't put Thirsty in. I put in McCarty, Hodges, and Valimaki. And we have 7,300 left.
Oh, nice. We just talked about Tom Kim. I'll throw him in.
All right, sure. We'll throw in Tom Kim.
At least it takes away from some of, like you said, the other, the McCarty Hodges chalk with the Ben Griffin Day. Like, if you go Ben Griffin and Day and looking for a way to get different, you could go like Day, Griffin, and then pick your one guy, whoever your 6K guy is. We said James earlier, but you may not even need to go down there. Like, you could use what you said earlier, Pat. Who's the guy down low you like? Oh, Eckroat. You mentioned. It seems like it would make sense.
When you say I like Eckroat, I just said Eckroat is someone I want to look into. It's not
who's the guy you mentioned earlier? I'll clarify for you. I'll put the full clarification. Who's the guy you mentioned earlier was maybe Eckroat. So I'm saying we know he's not going to be popular. So you can then start to stack up some popularity after this if you think it's Valimaki and that's a guy you like. Like, you could play this, Pat. And I don't think this is too speculative, and it kind of fits everywhere. Day, Griffin. Get your Bez in there. you can still play Valimaki and McCarty, and then it would land you on Eckroat, for example. That's like not too far off of a lot of the things that we've talked about here.
No, and it gets you away from most of the popular 7K guys.
Yeah, I really don't think you're on any of them, because in that lineup, what? Maybe McCarty gets the steam? Okay,
See,
fine.
McCarty and Valimaki, I think, will be popular enough versus some of like the absolute goobers around them.
The thing about McCarty and Valimaki, so McCarty, okay, maybe in like the higher stake stuff, sure. But I will just say this, the Valimaki one, if he gets popular enough, like you're saying, which I don't disagree with you, and it's 8 to 9%, people got to remember 90% plus don't have him. So like that's 9 out of every 10 don't have him. 90 out of every 100 don't have him. So there's so many lineups without him that's just, I wouldn't worry about that at all. Nobody has Eckroat, and we'll see what Bez actually ends up getting to. But even if some of these guys get a little bit of steam, the whole lineup construction is already different by it being Day and Griffin to start off.
What are Harry Higgs' odds this week?
Very high, most likely, because I didn't even know he was in the field. So,
well, I'm just looking at, and I again ran the short-term modeling on this. So of the 6K guys here, who are the best? Benjamin James is actually number 1 at $6,600 of the 6Ks. Christoph Ventura is number 2 at $6,800. Then it's Harry Higgs and Ben Coles. I think Harry Higgs is like 400 to 1 this week. I'm gonna bet that guy.
Yeah.
225. So 200 to 1. I'll get him with 8 places. That'll be one more bet we got coming in. So you can kind of fill it out that way. And I tried to figure out like why. Because he won what? 2 or 3 times on Corn Ferry last year.
Okay. Higgs it is. How much is he? 65?
Yeah, 6,500. So if we end up building a lineup that way, so we use 2 of those guys from down there. I mean, Ben Coles he just doesn't putt enough, which is kind of the problem. Whereas Higgs can go up and down with that. But if we were able to jam 2 6K guys here, let's go James and Higgs, the 2 that I like the most.
Okay.
What can we do with that? I don't want to go Griffin and Day. Could we go Poston, Thompson, Glover, and Michael Kim? There's a lineup for you. Poston, Davis Thompson, Lucas Glover, Michael Kim with those 2 6K guys. Works out perfect.
Yeah. 10, 2 9s, and an 8 with 2 6s. No 7s at all.
No 7s.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If you're picking and choosing that spot, because there's so many ways you can go with it, I don't even think the most natural would be that people would go to Day Griffin there. So it's just showing that there's so many ways you can build with 2 6s that if you kind of have those guys in your mind, I would commit to them on some lineups and build out some versions of it.
I like it.
What is the one I was going to say earlier, like the Pearson Cootie setup of who do you have when you just run it for like all the birdies? Like just fire away, try and like just get the ultimate upside lineup. I mean, you could probably still leave Michael Kim on there because of what he's capable of and what we've seen in the past. But is there anybody else that comes to mind that sort of has that Cootie effect of what you mentioned, where playing events that fit this mold, making a ton of birdies, take the risk, because if they make the cut, they could come 25th, but still outscore that by a bunch. You know what I mean?
Let's see. I can look this up for you. Birdies are better gained on easy courses over the last 36 rounds. Clanton, Highsmith, Siwoo, Sungjae.
See, how does Sungjae pop on that? Man, he's just making too many bogeys.
Let me. Well, he doesn't play that many like super easy tournaments. So let's see. I mean, he's another guy. Has he won Shriners?
Shriners? I don't know. He won the Honda.
Yeah, he did. I thought he won Shriners as well. Maybe he only has. Does he really only have the one win in his career?
Siwoo, Clanton, Cootie. I'm just trying to think.
Yeah, he did win Shriners. He won Shriners in 2021.
Oh, baby. Fire up your Sungjae, Tom Kim lineups this week.
So let's see here. So who did I say? It was, yeah. It's funny because like, even looking at it, his birdies are better over this time on the easy courses. Like it's one round of the Travelers, Canadian Open, the Truist, one round, and all the rounds of the CJ Cup. Even in that, it goes back long enough that he's like from the 2020, like more than a year ago, Scottish Open, and the John Deere a year ago. That's where these numbers are coming from.
Who else? Someone in the chat said Springer. Where's he at?
On this list?
Yeah, or any. Yeah, I was just wondering, but I feel like
Hayden Springer is actually 14th on that list. Yeah, I believe he opened with a 59 here last year.
Yeah, he finished. I think he finished 7th. I just saw, and then he was like 34th last week, but I think he scored about. Can you pull him up real quick and do the Cootie card? Pull it up and let's just go scroll over to his birdies like you did with Cootie.
Okay, yeah, Springer.
Yeah, let's do Springer. I think we'll like to, and you can see this stuff. That's the key to the visuals. If you're watching this, I know a lot of people listening to the podcast, but just we'll call it out anyway. But 21 birdies on an eagle last week. Couple weeks with 16-1, 17. He can definitely put up birdies, 68, 65. You talked about that 59 last year, things like that. So, I like Springer. And then who else fits the mold?
So here are the best guys. So I only listed the top 4. So you can pick and choose from these ones if you'd like. Clanton, Highsmith, Siwoo, Sungjae, Jesper Svensson, Jaeger, Thorbjornsson, Ben Griffin, Lucas Glover, Nico Echeverria, Eric Cole, Phillips, Wise from probably 18 years ago. Those numbers are coming from Springer, Eckroat, Valimaki, Tom Kim, Jake Knapp.
All right, I'm trying to see if there was if you put. I kind of like the Nico call a little bit.
I mean, I love Nico this week. If you give me a wedge easy course, you give me Nico.
Did you say Glover?
I did say Glover, yes.
So I like this one. This is interesting. You can go Sungjae, Glover, Clanton, Cootie, Nico, Springer.
Clanton, Cootie, Nico, and then Springer. Who was the other guy? Glover, you said.
Yeah, and it landed on Glover, and I just thought that was interesting because it's like a Sungjae Glover, and then you get the couple of 8K guys, Clanton, Cootie, and then it lands you on Nico, who we chose. Nico's another guy that sort of fits the bill of what we talked about earlier. I just don't think he can get popular because he's around too many other names. He's got last week's winner. He's got Smalley, Mitchell, Hubbard. People still play Kitayama. There's Putnam, Bez, all those dudes. I definitely think there's an option there. What else could you do? I'm just trying to see here. If I go Sungjae to Thor popped up, didn't he?
Yeah, Thor was up there.
So you can obviously just play that. Now you don't have to move on anybody. That's another thing. If you don't like my boy Sungjae and you don't believe in it, like what we just talked about, you could just easily play Thor. And that's another way to play Thor differently. We still liked Glover. We definitely talked about Cootie. You mentioned Clanton being able to score, and obviously you can mix and match things and move them around. But I just think that's another way. And also Clanton could even be your boy Kevin Yu. I feel like he can just score more too.
Isn't it weird that Clanton's been piss poor since becoming a pro?
Yeah, I don't know. Every time I ever saw him, it was on X or Twitter, whatever we're going to call it, like FSU stuff. Like, oh, winning this, crushing this, winning by 5, wins this tournament, whatever it might be. The one like the Happy Gilmore Waterbury Open, basically, or whatever it was, the Invitational. So, but Kevin Yu, not bad, by the way. He's another guy that showed up here that I just saw, and we mentioned him off the top of the show. But 20th and 6th here, and then recently, what do you have? A 25th, a 3rd. And then what did he do? Did he play? He didn't play last week, but
yeah, he WD'd pre-tournament last week.
That's what it was. I don't know what that was regarding, but if we're going to play Bez, might as well play you. Like that lineup can score. Cootie, you, Nico with Springer, Glover, and Thor. That can score.
Well, that's the lineup that we have in there right now.
Who else can score above those guys? I
mean, Griffin, Poston. I feel like Siwoo is the ultimate example of this.
Which he lands you on Sam Stevens with $100 left over.
Yeah, don't like that. Don't like that.
Michael Kim. Just play Michael Kim and leave the $200. Done.
Yeah, you could do that. That would make sense. All right, I think we've built enough of these lineups at this point. Not a ton of questions in the chat this week because, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily going to be a lazy week, but it's going to be a lazy week.
Yeah, it's definitely a lazy week from the perspective of like people are waiting on the Open. Now we know that it's summer, 4th of July. Shout out to our American friends upcoming. We've got the Canada Day was yesterday for all of our Canadian friends and for ourselves. So I think it's definitely that particular setup is lazy. But in general, I think what the main setup is just like you're starting to see in these types of fields where you can predict easily the top 4 to 5 guys. But and a bit of the common builds, but then after that, it does just get really spread out. So you can kind of get away with just playing any guys that you like versus trying to overthink it because most of them end up staying in that, 8 to 12% range, Pat, or 7 to 12. You want to put a bigger range, whatever you want to do. You can get away with a lot more.
Looking at the odds right now, just from guys down the list, I don't know if this is going to be indicative of DraftKings pricing or not, but because I pulled up Harry Higgs on my screen. So Harry Higgs was 350 to 1, and now he's 225 to 1. I thought that was interesting.
Just at live or what?
No, he opened the week there. So the guys that opened the week in the 350, so he was 350, he's down to 225. William Mao, the chairman, went from 300 to 175. Benjamin James went from 350 to 225. Ben Coles went from 350 to 250. Dylon, 350 to 185 to 1.
Dylon. I didn't even think about him, but William Mao, that's an interesting name. I know Baroff has talked to me a bunch in the past about him as well, and Sky and guys like that always bring him up. So shout out to Sky, massive heater, 100K win back-to-back weeks on FanDuel in that monster. That's just or whatever they call it over there. It's an incredible feat. So congrats to him. And I saw him rocking the loser bet, the Payne Stewart gear at the event the previous week. So I'll wear that gear around too if it's for 100K plus back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I would guess so. Do you even play on FanDuel anymore?
Oh yeah, for sure. That week that the first week that he won, I came like 12th, and I had the Siwoo in-game WD in that lineup. So it was it was like the best 5 or 6 by wide margin. If it was anyone but Siwoo, I would have been up there with Sky challenging him for the top. So way she goes. But I do like some of the contests over there for golf because they have like a 333 with 100K up top, and you can, I could chuck 3 or 4 entries in it, no problem, and just play it, and whatever happens. I had a nice little MLB night there last week. I came first and second in the $55. That was like 7,500. So it's not a bad site for that, but DraftKings is where all the action is, and Fantasy Golf World Championship this week. So round 1, excited for that.
Good luck in the Fantasy Golf World Championships.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see how it goes. If we get to round 2, maybe we'll set up the old giveaway again and see if if I make it to round 3 and give away some of the top prize. Last year we got all the way there and had a chance. It just didn't have a good result. 47th of 50th once I got there, and was literally dead on arrival essentially. So don't want to see that, but they do have a secondary tournament this year at the live final as well, which I was excited about. I sort of talked them into it a little bit last year because they had it for football and baseball, but they have a showdown round 4. So if you're out on the Classic, on the main live final, at least you get the secondary entry into the round 4 showdown contest, which I think has like 250K up top as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it just for the people in the finals, or is it for everyone who had qualified?
No, it's just for the people. It's just for the people that have qualified. So, that made the live final. Sorry. Yes. Good call on that. I'm trying to see if I've got it here real fast, just because it is cool. It's basically everybody gets paid in it. It is 250K to first, 150K to second, 100K, 60K, 40K, 30K, 25, down to 5K minimum. So it's part of your min cash when you get there. Like you're getting the 5K for last in that, and you're getting the 8K for last in the 50th. So you end up with 12K if you make it to the live final versus 4K no matter what this week that you get.
Okay. I actually like that setup.
It's a good setup for sure. And honestly, it sucks for golf because it's the way it goes, but some people get there on Friday. It's just easier for travel, or if they're working full time or whatever, and they can take the Friday off. They arrive on Friday evening and they have a 3 of 6. It's like, well, fun weekend. Good thing I traveled 8 hours to get here, and it's nice to see everyone, but I can't win shit. This is a way that you're still live no matter what, with a chance to play for big prizes on Sunday.
Everyone out there, smash a like to the episode. Again, coolbet.com for that poker tournament to get into the Pat Mayo Open qualifier Tuesday night, 8 Eastern time on Coolbet. So come take my money. I dare you to come take it. Coolbet is open to everyone in Canada outside of Ontario. Underdog, code Mayo, gets you up to $1,000 deposit bonus as well. I think, Tambo, I'm going to be back tomorrow. I was just going to release like a best of because, it's the holiday week. How much are people really going to watch or listen anyway? But this poker thing is going on right now, and it could affect daily fantasy, pro players, pro bettors, everything like that. So I think Brick is going to come on and we're going to talk through what this actually means for these people. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I think hopefully Brick knows this, and I'm sure he does if he's doing his research, and always love watching those guys. But I screenshot it this morning because a lot of people were talking about it. But This is important, and I'll bring it up here because I think it's people are playing DFS and watching this here. Alex Harden, Fear My Turtle, incredible dude, and Alex is a great guy over at ETR, does a ton of good things. He says, obviously awful for poker and sports betting, but I'll just frame up and put it in my own words. It doesn't impact DFS the same way because they're taxed as a 1099 miscellaneous versus, which is different than the tax form that's used in the other sense. So it's actually not the same for DFS players.
So who is this who put this out?
Fear My Turtle DFS on X, Alex Harden, posted this and said, and then Dan Bach from Roto Grinders came over and included the same thing and all that. And even Galfond, who had posted it this morning, huge in the poker world, for those that know, said, maybe I don't understand DFS tax. Can you clarify this for me? And then somebody hopped in and said, DFS is just taxed separately per operator yearly, contest entries in versus winnings. Anything's over 600, you pay taxes on. Say on DraftKings, you end a year plus 10K, you pay taxes on that, but it's given as a 1099 miscellaneous. He says, I see. DFS isn't currently considered wagering, so it's treated differently. So actually, let's get an influx to the DFS streets if it's going to happen, but let's just not have it happen. I support the fellow gamblers out there that want to make things happen, and it seems incredibly stupid, but that's how things go with these tax laws and governments and all that stuff. So yeah, it's not the same for DFS, but poker and betting, it's extremely horrible for those people.
This would be if everything stays how it's being projected right now with this caveat for DFS, does feel like that would create another boom in DFS.
It could. I mean, DFS has its own issues because right now, it's today or tomorrow, I guess, is the ruling in California as far as what they're going to do over there, where it seems like they could ban it. That is a massive state. That is much bigger. I mean, it's the equivalent of what happened to us with you in your situation specifically, like in Ontario. That is our big boy spot of if that goes down, that's not great. That's the California situation. Like there's other states, of course, that are big, but California is a huge one. So we've got our own stuff there. And by the way, I'm not sure I want all these poker players coming over because there are some extremely sharp DFS players, especially in the Fantasy Golf World Championship this week, that are also bracelet winners. A lot of the same concepts apply with poker. The bankroll management, the risk adversity, the contest selection, all these different things. So a ton of really good poker players that are very strong at DFS and are probably just sitting on the sidelines waiting. So hopefully everything just clears up in all these situations and everybody's happy, but it's the way the world works. Sometimes it changes on quick shifts.
All right. Well, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. More on this topic tomorrow with Brick and maybe another guest. Maybe I'll ask Alex to come on and see if he can talk this through with us and try to figure out what's going on, what it means for the industry, and what it might mean for you as well if you are in these streets and this is how you make a living. I mean, I'm a content guy, so if I could just write off more of my losses, it would be great, but I'm in Canada, so it doesn't really apply to me whatsoever anyway, because our laws are way different than everyone else's. But for now, that will do it for me. Smash your like on the way out. Good luck at the John Deere Classic, and I will see you next time.